Hey, Monday, October 8th, regular kids, we're going to get our story called Lottery. There's a whole bunch of stuff up here. Your 9 weeks grade is posted. I gave back all of your stuff, so if you were gone, you missed that. Your B points are updated with 15 B points. There's a final short stories test coming up on Thursday of this week. If you're at home watching this, you can retake last Friday's Socratic test. I'll be sending out a remind tonight, so hopefully that helps you out as far as that goes. Spirit Week tomorrow is Tourist Day, and the notebooks are due this coming Friday. That is straight from my website as far as my notebook goes, so you can follow that straight off my website, or you can just pause and look on there to make sure that your notebook is good as far as that part goes. Let's see, that is the lottery, which we're going to get to here in just a moment, and then talk about that. Walden, make it fast.
Can we do other homework if we listen?
Absolutely, at the end of class. I mean, not right now while I'm teaching. That'd be silly. With the lottery, to get into our flash story that we have here, one, it's going to connect to traditions. With traditions, usually when we think of those, they connect to holidays in some way. And for the most part with you guys, you don't really care why we do these things. You just care about the fact that we do them. Like with Halloween coming up, with the... Let's back up. What tradition is connected to Halloween?
Trick-or-treating.
Trick-or-treating. So you can't answer with the same word. Trick-or-treating, getting candy, dressing up in costumes. For the most part, kids probably have no idea why that started or why we do it. Nor do they care. All you care about is at the end of the night having a giant sack of candy. Much like with Christmas. You probably have no idea why people bring giant trees into their house and put lights upon it. You do realize you just threw plastic into my paper recycling, right? So you're going to take out the plastic, the plastic part. And you don't have to care. All you care about is the giant pile of presents you get in the giving. That'd be trash. Now we're going to go for plastic. Third time's a charm. If only we had pointed this out at the beginning of the year. So same thing with 4th of July. On 4th of July, we shoot off fireworks because we're celebrating a war and the fact that we won a war, hence the fireworks that connect to it. With traditions, it's not so much why the tradition happened. It's the fact that we keep doing it because everyone else does it. We keep doing it because our parents do it. We keep doing it because it got passed along to us. That's going to play a big role in our story with the story of the lottery. It happens because of tradition. No. I'm assuming by now you guys should hopefully know all of that stuff. With a lottery... I'm assuming when I say lottery, most of you guys think of scratch-off tickets and the Mega Millionaires and stuff like that. But that's not the only kind of lottery that exists. I do a lottery in my class every week. Well, not this week because of Spirit Week, but almost every other week I do a lottery in here. The tie game. That is a type of lottery. You have a chance of winning a thing that comes from it. It's not really connected to money, but you do get a chance of winning. There are other kinds of lotteries. There was a movie based on a book that was connected to a lottery about children. And children could enter this lottery. And you won the best prize ever, which was a chance to kill other children. That is the best prize. I feel the same way. So a lottery just means you have a random chance of winning a thing, whatever that thing may be. Our story that we're going to get to, it has a rather punch-in-your-face ending to it, which when we get to it, is going to be even more of a punch in the face when we figure out that it was based on a true story of things that were happening here in America. And so to figure out all the stuff leading up to it, we're going to have to do all the exposition and the foreshadowing that goes into it. So with our story of lottery, as I start reading, we're going to figure out once again, it's kind of sad, last time we're ever going to do this. We're going to figure out the setting, when it's taking place, where it's taking place, who's involved, and all the kinds of stuff like that. With the lottery. The morning of June 27th was clear and sunny, with the fresh warmth of a full summer day. The flowers were blossoming profusely, and the grass was richly green. The people of the village began to gather in the square between the post office and the bank around 10 o'clock. In some towns, there were so many people that the lottery took 2 days and had to be started on June 26th. But in this village, where there were only about 300 people, the whole lottery took less than 2 hours. So it could begin at 10 o'clock in the morning and still be through in time to allow the villagers to get home for noon dinner. Quick pause. When is our story taking place? June 26th. What time of day? In the morning time. Where is it taking place?
In a village.
In a village. How big is the village?
Small.
Small. About 300 people. To give you a comparison, our school has about 1,000 kids in it. So we have more kids in our school than this whole village. Our 7th grade is about 500 kids. So we have almost twice as many kids in just the 7th grade than this whole village. An idea of 300 people is our cafeteria. At lunch, there's about 330 kids in each lunch. So that's how big their entire village is just your lunch. The children assembled first, of course. School was recently over for the summer, and the feeling of liberty sat uneasily on most of them. They tended to gather together quietly for a while before they broke into boisterous play. Their talk was still the classroom and the teacher, of books and reprimands. Bobby Martin had already stuffed his pockets full of stones, and the other boys soon followed his example, selecting the smoothest and roundest stones. Bobby and Harry Jones and Dickie Delacroix, the villagers pronounced this name Delacroix, eventually made a great pile of stones in one corner of the square and guarded it against the raids of the other boys. The girls stood aside, talking amongst themselves, or looking over their shoulders at the boys. The very small children rolled in the dust or clung to the hands of their older brothers or sisters. Another quick pause, because I get to make fun of kids. What is it the boys are doing?
Playing with rocks.
Playing with rocks. And before we make fun of boys for playing with rocks, what is it the girls are doing?
Standing and talking.
Talking and checking out the boys. So I don't know which is worse, being the ones playing with rocks or being the ones going like, look at that boy playing with them rocks. And then trying to like figure out which one. So they both have issues. There's just different types of issues. Oh, and what is it the real little kids are doing?
Holding hands with their
Rolling around in the dirt, because that's what little kids do. This next part, we're going to find out what we actually use for this particular lottery, like scratch off tickets or punches in the face or whatever it might be. Soon, the men began to gather, surveying their own children, speaking of planting and rain, tractors and taxes. They stood together, away from the pile of stones in the corner, and their jokes were quiet. And they smiled rather than laughed. The women, wearing faded house dresses and sweaters, came shortly after their menfolk. They greeted one another and exchanged bits of gossip as they went to join their husbands. Soon the women, standing by their husbands, began to call to their children, and the children came reluctantly, having to be called 4 or 5 times. Bobby Martin ducked under his mother's grasping hand and ran, laughing, back to the pile of stones. His father spoke up sharply. Bobby came quickly. Took his place between his father and his oldest brother. The lottery was conducted, as were the square dances, the teen club, and the Halloween program by Mr. Summers, who had time and energy to devote to civic activities. He was a round-faced, jovial man, and he ran the coal business, and people were sorry for him because he had no children, and his wife was a scold. When he arrived in the square, carrying the black wooden box, there was a murmur of conversation among the villagers, and he waved and called out, "I'm a little late today, folks." The postmaster, Mr. Graves, followed him, carrying a 3-legged stool. The stool was put in the center of the square, and Mr. Summers set the black box down on it. The villagers kept their distance, leaving a space between themselves and the stool, and when Mr. Summers rang the bell, there was